I gently dusted the antique mahogany desk that had belonged to my grandmother, ignoring Rebecca's loud phone conversation in the next room. Through the ornate double doors, her voice carried clearly across the mansion's central hall. "It's absolutely exhausting, darling. Living with Michael's mother is like having a ghost from the past haunting us. She won't let me redecorate, won't let me modernize. She acts like she still owns the place. If only she knew." I continued my careful preservation of the family heirlooms, each piece holding generations of stories that Rebecca saw as merely outdated furniture. Can you believe she still insists on using those ancient silver settings for dinner? And those oil paintings, so dreary. I want to bring in my interior designer, but she keeps talking about historical value and family legacy. I glanced at the portrait above the fireplace, my great-grandmother, who had saved this mansion during the Great Depression by selling her jewelry but refusing to part with our ancestral home. Yes, exactly. Rebecca's voice rose higher. Michael keeps saying we should respect her wishes, but honestly, once we have children, I can't have them growing up in this museum. She'll have to go to a retirement home or something. The sound of my son's footsteps approached. "Rebecca, please lower your voice." "Why should I? This is my home now. We're married, which means what's yours is mine, and I won't have your mother dictating how we live." I closed my eyes, remembering the day I had allowed Michael and Rebecca to move in. She had seemed so appreciative then, calling the mansion magnificent and historic. That lasted about 2 weeks. "Darling," Rebecca continued, her voice sickly sweet, "you have to choose. Either she goes or my father withdraws his investment in your company." My hand stilled on the desk. So that's what this was about. "Rebecca, please," Michael pleaded. "Mom grew up here. This house means everything to her. And our future means everything to me. I won't live another day with her hovering around, protecting her precious antiques like they're more important than our happiness." I heard something crash and rushed to the doorway. One of the Venetian vases, a wedding gift to my grandmother, lay shattered on the marble floor. "Oops," Rebecca said, not looking sorry at all. "I guess we'll have to redecorate now." "That was a family heirloom," I said quietly. "Family heirloom?" She laughed sharply. "More like yard sale junk. This entire house needs a makeover, and you need to leave." Michael stepped forward. "Rebecca, that's enough." "No, it's not enough." She stormed to her designer purse, pulling out papers. "I had our lawyer draw these up. Since we're married, this house is part of our joint assets. And as the lady of the house, I'm serving your mother with an eviction notice." My son's face paled. "You did what?" "It's time, Michael. Choose your mother or your wife. And remember what Daddy's investment means to your company." I looked at the paper she thrust toward me, then at my son's tortured expression. "Actually," I said calmly, "I have some papers of my own." "What are you talking about?" Rebecca snapped. I walked to my grandmother's desk, removing a folder from the secret compartment she had shown me decades ago. "The deed to the mansion," I said, laying it out, "along with the trust documents establishing that this house can never be sold or transferred outside the maternal line of our family." Rebecca snatched the papers, her perfectly manicured nails crumpling the edges. As she read, her face went from triumphant to confused to pale. This can't be legal." "It's been legal for 5 generations," I explained. "Every daughter or daughter-in-law who's lived here has respected the trust. Until now. But we're married." Michael owns. "Michael doesn't own anything," I interrupted gently. "Neither do you. This mansion belongs to the trust, of which I am the current trustee. Your marriage certificate doesn't change that." My son sat heavily in a nearby chair. "Mom, why didn't you tell me?" "Would it have mattered?" I asked quietly. Would it have stopped Rebecca from trying to erase our family's history? Rebecca's hands trembled as she read further. But my father's investment was made based on your assumption that you could claim this property." I finished. "Perhaps you should have checked the property records first." I picked up a piece of the shattered vase. "Each piece in this house has a story, Rebecca. Stories of women who preserved our legacy through wars, depressions, and hardships. Women who understood that real value isn't about modernization or social status. It's about honoring what came before us." "This is ridiculous," she sputtered. "Michael, do something." He looked at the portrait of his great-grandmother, then at the papers in Rebecca's shaking hands. "Yes," he said slowly. "I think I will." Finally, Rebecca exclaimed. I'm calling your father, he continued, to explain that we won't be needing his investment after all. The next morning, I woke to the sound of Rebecca's shrill voice echoing through the mansion's halls. She was on the phone with her father, trying to salvage both her pride and her husband's business deal. Daddy, there must be something we can do. These trust documents can't be that binding. She paused, listening. What do you mean your lawyers already knew? Why didn't you tell me? I made my way to the breakfast room, where generations of my family had started their days. Michael was already there, studying old photographs I'd laid out on the table. Is this Grandma Rose? He asked, pointing to a woman standing proudly in front of the mansion's gates. Yes, I smiled, pouring coffee from the antique silver pot. She added the east wing during the 1940s, designed it herself. The same wing Rebecca wants to tear down for her indoor pool. Rebecca stormed in, her designer robe flowing dramatically. The lawyers say we can contest the trust, she announced. Daddy's willing to spend whatever it takes to destroy a legacy that survived 2 world wars. I asked mildly, sipping from my grandmother's china cup. To modernize this mausoleum, she snapped. Michael, surely you don't want to live in a museum forever. Before he could answer, the doorbell rang. Rebecca rushed to answer it, expecting her lawyer. Instead, she found Mrs. Henderson, our elderly neighbor. Oh, it's you, Rebecca said coldly. We're rather busy. Actually, Mrs. Henderson interrupted. I'm here about the Historical Society meeting. Catherine always hosts the monthly preservation committee in the library. The what? Rebecca spun to face me. You're hosting meetings in my house. Our family has hosted the Historical Society for 60 years, I explained. The library's architectural details are featured in several preservation textbooks. Mrs. Henderson peered at Rebecca over her glasses. My dear, did you really think the Henderson Foundation would allow anyone to modify this mansion? We've been protecting historic properties in this area since before you were born. Rebecca's perfect composure cracked further. The Henderson Foundation, the same foundation that funds the museum where Daddy's been trying to get on the board. The very same, Mrs. Henderson smiled. Catherine, shall we use the usual tea service, the one your grandmother saved during the fire of '52? I watched understanding finally dawn on Rebecca's face. Not only was her plan to claim the mansion failing, but her father's social ambitions were now at risk too. The Preservation Committee would love to hear your ideas for the East Wing, I offered kindly. Perhaps you'd like to join us. Join you, she sputtered. For what? To discuss more ways to live in the past. No, Mrs. Henderson said firmly, to learn why some things are worth preserving. Michael stood up. I'd like to join. I should know more about my family's history. Rebecca stared at him in disbelief. Michael. What? He challenged. Mom's right. We can't just erase history because it doesn't match your vision of modern luxury. Other committee members began arriving, each greeting me warmly and eyeing Rebecca with knowing looks. They'd seen her type before, young wives determined to modernize historic homes, not understanding the value of what they wanted to destroy. Fine, Rebecca declared. Have your meeting. But this isn't over. She stormed upstairs, the sound of her expensive slippers echoing off walls that had witnessed far worse tantrums over the centuries. During the meeting, I watched Michael absorb every detail about the mansion's history. He learned about the hidden passages his great-grandfather had used to help people escape persecution, the garden where his grandmother had grown food during wartime, the library where generations of neighborhood children had been tutored. Mom, he said afterward, why didn't you tell me all this before? Would you have listened? I asked gently, or were you too busy trying to prove yourself to Rebecca's father? He looked ashamed. I forgot what really matters. Just like I forgot who you really are. And who am I? The keeper of our family's legacy, he said softly. The one who makes sure we remember where we came from. Later that evening, as Rebecca sulked in her room, Michael found me in the library. I called Rebecca's father, he said. Told him I'm starting my own company, without his investment. Are you sure? He looked around at the walls of books, each shelf holding pieces of our family's story. Yes. Some things are worth more than money. From upstairs, we heard Rebecca's angry voice. Daddy, he can't cut off my credit cards. I'm your princess. The transformation of both the mansion and my family over the next 6 months surprised everyone, especially those who had witnessed Rebecca's previous reign of attempted modernization. Initially, Rebecca retreated to the guest wing, emerging only to make snide comments about living and museum. But when her social circle began praising the mansion's historical significance and authentic period details, she found herself facing an unfamiliar sensation, genuine curiosity. The turning point came through, of all things, a charity gala. "I need help," she called one evening, her voice missing its usual contempt. "The Historical Society wants to host their annual fundraiser here. Mrs. Henderson says you've organized it before." I could have refused. Part of me wanted to. Instead, I said, "Meet me in the ballroom. It's time you learned about true elegance." The Rebecca who met me under the crystal chandeliers was barely recognizable. Her ultra-modern outfit had been replaced by a vintage-inspired dress. Her aggressive makeup softened, and her eyes held something I'd never seen before: respect. Michael, who had rediscovered his love for our family's history, watched as I taught his wife about the ballroom's architectural details. "Every molding tells a story," I explained, showing her the hand-carved designs. "Just like every family has a history worth preserving." The irony of my words wasn't lost on anyone. What followed was what Mrs. Henderson called the Great Awakening. The woman who once couldn't wait to modernize everything now spent weekends learning about historical preservation. Rebecca actually stopped the delivery men from replacing the old doorknobs, Michael told me proudly. She said the patina was irreplaceable. The Historical Society, showing more acceptance than I'd expected, began including Rebecca in their restoration projects. She worked alongside experts, learning about period-appropriate renovations. One day, I overheard her tell a friend, "Why didn't we see the beauty in these old things?" Rebecca set down her restoration handbook, her hands trembling. "Because we were too busy trying to make everything new," she admitted softly. "We thought luxury meant modern, when real luxury was here all along." "Like how we treated Mom and the house?" "Yes," she whispered. "Your mother preserved this legacy while we tried to destroy it. We were too blind to see that true elegance has a history." The real breakthrough came during the Historical Society's gala. A young couple asked about purchasing and preserving their own historic home. The old Rebecca would have recommended modern renovations. The new Rebecca spent hours sharing preservation resources and contacts. "This is real society," she said afterward. "Not pretending to be modern, but honoring what came before." Later that evening, as we closed the massive front doors, Rebecca lingered. "I've been thinking," she said quietly, "about the East Wing." "Oh, yes, instead of an indoor pool, maybe we could restore it to show how the house evolved through different eras. If you'll teach me?" I studied her face, looking for any trace of her old destructive ambitions. I found none. "That's a wonderful idea," I said carefully, "but it would mean giving up your modernization plans." "Some things are worth preserving," she replied, watching Michael show guests the secret passages. "I just wish I'd learned that sooner." Michael, who had been pretending not to listen, joined us. For the first time ever, he looked at his childhood home with the same reverence I felt. "Will you help us?" Rebecca asked. "To be proper caretakers of this legacy." "Better," I smiled. "We'll all do it together, and learn plenty along the way." I looked at them both uncertainly. If you're ready for that?" They nodded, watching years of misguided ambitions dissolve like morning mist on the mansion's ancient windows. As we walked through the quiet halls that night, Michael pointed to a family portrait. "Look, sometimes the most beautiful homes are the ones that tell our stories." "Yes," I agreed, watching Rebecca carefully return a vintage key to its original hook. "And sometimes the best families are the ones who learn to honor their past." The mansion's old walls seemed to glow in the evening light, but the warmth of transformation came from within. In the end, it wasn't about ownership, modernization, or even social status. It was about learning that true worth isn't measured by how new something is, but by how well you preserve what matters. As Rebecca often says now, the best homes aren't built with money. They are built with history, love, and maybe a few restoration tools.